Hello, I'm Eric Brook and welcome back to another episode of EricPod. And this is EricPod Goes to the Beach Part 2. That's better. Alright, I'm here at the beach. That's better. Anywho, I am back at the beach for EricPod Goes to the Beach Part 2. And we are at Dixon Park Beach, just south of Bar Beach, where we finished the last beach episode. I was trying to park here, but the parking was absolutely ridiculous in the middle of the school holidays. But it's now a month later, so a lot of the school kids, most of the school kids are back at school, so it's not as hard to park here, but I did ride here on my scooter just in case. So it's been 5 weeks since I was last at the beach. It's Wednesday the 19th of November 2025 at Dixon Park Beach with the ocean behind me. Certainly a lot less crowded here today because the school kids have gone back from the September holidays. It was impossible to find a parking spot here and also at Merewether last time I was here. Just in case, I rode the scooter anyway. So let's have a look at Dixon Park Beach, which has been described by the City of Newcastle as one of Newcastle's hidden gems when it comes to beaches. So having a look at the current weather conditions courtesy of the Bureau of Meteorology, it is just after 10 a.m. and it's 23 degrees Celsius at the moment, expecting about 28 on the coast, 30 inland. There's a slight breeze from the south, 11 to 13 kilometres an hour. And at the moment, the swimming condition here at Dixon Park Beach are rated as a 6 out of 10 for swimming and a 4 out of 10 for surfing by the City of Newcastle. So even though there's no school kids here, it's a Wednesday morning, it's a work day, there's still quite a few people walking out and about on the coastal areas. Some of which I rode past on the way here, but there's certainly plenty of people out and about. We're currently looking down towards Merewether. As I mentioned on the previous episode, it's quite possible to, if you had the energy and the fitness, to walk all the way from Nobbys all the way past Newcastle Beach to Bar Beach to Dixon Park, which is where we are now, and then on towards Merewether. So today's plan to complete this episode and to complete this series for the moment. On the first episode we visited Newcastle Beach, the Ocean Baths, Bar Beach and also Nobbys. But the plan on this occasion is to start here at Dixon Beach, make our way down to Merewether Beach soon, and then down to the Merewether Ocean Baths to complete. But I'll have to do, or not that I have to do it, it's that I want to do the Merewether Ocean Baths in 2 sections. Now it's Wednesday today, so the Newcastle Ocean Baths are having their weekly clean, as we mentioned on the last episode. So that means that Merewether Ocean Baths will be open. So we'll go down there later on today and see what that's like when it's open. And then tomorrow, being Thursday, we'll go back to Merewether Ocean Baths and visit them on their cleaning day. And we should be able to actually go in and have a look at what the situation is in there, because it's more open than what the Newcastle Ocean Baths were, and have a look at the process and to compare the difference between what it looked like when it was open and what it looks like while it's being cleaned. Certainly a nice day to be on the beach. It's not too cold at the moment, being 23 degrees, expecting about 28 later on. So a nice day out for a walk, nice day out for a swim or a surf. But I'll move the camera in a moment and I'll show you one of the other things that Dixon Park Beach is known for. One of the reasons that this is known as Dixon Park Beach is because this is Dixon Park. So towards the left hand side there's a children's playground, and there's a couple of undercover areas that you can have a picnic as well, barbecue facilities under the bigger of the 2 roofs. And one of the things that I've noticed down here before, not necessarily today because it's not really windy, is that if it's a windy day, and it's a nice day like it is today, you'll see some people flying their kites, and you also see paragliders in and around the area here as well. certainly a very nice spot. It's a place which is a place to see and be seen. I definitely don't want to be seen, and I'm definitely seeing, that's for sure. Actually, we might go for a little bit of a walk and talk. So I'm actually trying out a new mounting system for the iPhone, and it's the first time that I've really used a magnetic device with the iPhone. So it's basically a magnetic clip, and it enables you to hold the phone more like a camera and less like a phone. It does have zoom functions. It also has a shutter function and a couple of other different functions. I'm experimenting with it at the moment. So we're just walking down from Merewether Beach. I'm just not feeling comfortable in that environment to walk and talk, but if I'm actually walking and actually talking away from the beach, it might be a little bit better. Now, on a totally unrelated note, I was drinking a can of Pepsi just then, and it was really weird. I was starting to think like an influencer, and I'm definitely not an influencer, that's for sure. I don't want to be an influencer. If anyone is an influencer, well, good for them, but that's not me. So, but what I was trying to do, I was trying to take a drink of the Pepsi and have the logo on display. But to do that, I would have had to turn the can around so the logo was facing the camera, but it was the wrong way for me to drink, so I had to spin the can around again to have a drink. Speaking of Pepsi, I did see some disturbing news over the last week as I'm recording this, and I haven't done any more research into it at this stage, but apparently Australian Pepsi is going to have a new recipe, and it's all in aim of trying to make regular Pepsi a little bit more healthy. So instead of getting nutritionally half a star out of 5 with this new recipe, it'll apparently up to 1.5 stars out of 5. So I don't know if that will taste more like American Pepsi, and it's been a while since I've had it, or if it will taste like Mexican Pepsi, which I've also had, although that was, when would that have been? 2013, 2014. So apparently the only way that we'll soon be able to get the last remaining of the current recipe of the regular Pepsi is to look at it at the clearance or the discount stores. I've got no idea when this is going to happen, but I'll be interested to find out when it will. I probably will still drink Pepsi. I know that there's some places where it's quite easy to get and to drink something like Pepsi Max, which I found had a really revolting taste. I don't know if it'll be enough to force me to go back to Coke, but it will be certainly interesting over time to see if there's a noticeable difference or not. So in the time since I've been talking to you, I've made it all the way from Merewether Beach towards the Ocean Baths. So I was going to get back on my scooter and ride down here, but I'm already here. It's a couple of minutes walk, rather leisurely couple of minutes there. So we're heading down now towards the ocean baths. I'll do a bit more filming at the beach itself when I return to the scooter. So here we are at Merewether Ocean Baths with the quote-unquote lap pool behind me. There's about 10 people in there at the moment just swimming their laps at their own pace. There's a guy using a snorkel. There's someone else using some flippers. Just going at their own pace and just being at one with the world and just going up and down the pool casually, and that's great. That's great for them. I'm actually feeling at the moment this is probably the best place that I've been to so far in terms of being able to get up close to the ocean, not to have to get my feet wet. I don't need to take my shoes off. I don't need to walk through sand. And yet I can see behind me the Pacific Ocean, and I can hear the waves coming in. I can smell the salt air, and it's rather nice. I couldn't get up this far at Newcastle Ocean Baths. But there's a nice path for me to walk back, so I don't have to take my shoes off. I don't even have to take my long pants off if I don't want to, and I'm wearing my long pants primarily because I rode my scooter here. But I might actually dip my feet in at some stage, and to do it here is probably the best place to do it. It's very family orientated here because you've got more protection from the ocean compared to being at a traditional beach, and so that's why there's a lot of people with their young children here at the moment. So they just come down, and I did hear on a radio podcast recently that we're not necessarily being described as a nation of swimmers anymore, but more of a nation of waders, where we'll just go to the beach, not necessarily go out and swim, but just stick our legs in, maybe go up to our knees or something like that, and we're happy doing that. So that could well be a thing. I think the last time I was here a couple of years ago, I did put my feet in for a bit, but that's probably as far as it went. One major difference that I noticed here at the lap pool at Merewether compared to at Newcastle Ocean Baths is that there's no lane ropes. Now I don't know if that's because there's more people swimming in the lanes in the Newcastle Ocean Bath and they need a bit more order. I don't know why it is. Maybe because there's less people here and they can be trusted to just swim in a straight line without a need for a rope to divide the lanes off. There doesn't seem to be any way to be able to actually fix a lane rope onto the wall. Might have a look at that in a moment. But all the people that are swimming behind me, they're just doing their laps, not getting in anybody's way, just going at their own pace, and that's awesome for them. Now I don't know if this is the same bird that we looked at earlier, but if it is, hey buddy. And off he goes. Alright, here I am. I'm still at the Ocean Baths for the moment. I think I'm going to call it for this section of the episode on Wednesday. My plan is to come back tomorrow, Thursday. The Ocean Baths will be closed due to their weekly clean, and I'll be interested to hopefully be able to see that process. When I went on the last episode to the Newcastle Ocean Baths on the Wednesday when it was closed, we weren't allowed anywhere inside the ocean baths, so we could only really observe from a distance. I'll be keen to see if people do actually come here anyway. A lot of the regulars probably know that it's closed on a Thursday, so they may not come down. Now there's the two pools here that we've seen during the episode. The one closest to where I am at the moment is the smaller, shallower pool, and the other one is deeper, closer to the ocean. And that's where the swimmers also do their laps, as we've seen. It'll be interesting to see how they do it. If they close one first and then do it and then close the other, or do both at the same time. I guess we'll see this time tomorrow. when I come out here, just to see what the process is like. Even though it's the middle of a work day, there's still lots of people out and about. I don't know, obviously, how long people stay for. If they just stay for an hour or two, then they go home, or they spend the whole day down here. I probably couldn't stay the whole day down here, but I'm a older solo guy. Not down here with his mates, not looking to impress anybody, not looking to work on my tan or anything like that. I did actually think of putting my feet in. I did think about that, but I thought, I don't know, that means I have to get my feet dry, possibly go home with wet shoes. I don't have a towel. Don't want to have sand on my feet, but this has been the good thing about coming here, is that I can get right up to where the ocean waves break over the wall, and I can still be on a concrete path, and that's fine. Whereas with the beaches that I went to, if I wanted to be anywhere near the water, I'd either have to take my shoes off and then walk through the sand to get to the water, or I'd have to walk in my shoes across there and get sand in my shoes anyway. I was brought up in Western Sydney. I would spend days at a time down at a local swimming pool, but most of the time I'd go for a swim. The amount of time that I went to the pool as I got older reduced. I was the sort of kid that wasn't gifted at anything athletic or anything like that, but in the swimming carnival I'd still give most of the events a go anyway, like the 50 metre events at least. I'd give it a go, because my way of thinking, and the same applied at the athletics carnival and the cross country carnival, and I was probably better at the cross country carnival than any of them, was, well, I might as well do something here. I wasn't necessarily there to hang out with my mates or whatever, or just simply not go. The way I thought about things was just to go ahead and try anyway. So I'm glad that I came down here. If I just wanted some time out and relax and be close to the water, I'd do one of two things. I'd go for the scooter ride that I went on, or even in the car, do the same drive from Honeysuckle round past all the beaches and end up here, or at least at Merewether Beach, and then go home. Or if I wanted to be super close to the water and smell the salt air, I'd just come here, or maybe go to the Newcastle Ocean Baths, but more likely here. So that's pretty much the plan at the moment. Have a look and see what happens tomorrow when everything's closed up. Alright, so let's walk back towards the main beach. I know you can't see anything, but yeah, let's just walk back to the main beach. Glad that I came out. It's a nice afternoon here at the beach. It's not necessarily a thing that I'll do all the time, but it fits in well with today's theme of being Wellness Wednesday. As I mentioned in the last beach episode, I've been trying to just not necessarily sit around the house feeling sorry for myself when I'm not working. Not that I was really feeling sorry for myself, but there were times that I felt like I needed an extra little bit of motivation. So I know that even if I do work on Wednesday morning, which today is not the case, I've got today off, I know that I can look forward to Wednesday regardless, and have a bit of me time. There's nothing better than if I work a few days in a row, or quite a few days in a row. Recently I worked like 11 days straight, so I was really looking forward to the days off in the end, and it was just such a good feeling on the first day that I had off, being able to actually sleep in and have the sun come into my bedroom rather than me waking up before the sun and seeing the sunrise from somewhere else. I like bird shots. Sometimes I just like to look at them and see how long it takes them before they'll fly away. The birds around here seem to be well acclimatised to having people around. There he goes. But yeah, just trying some different things at the moment. Now I will give you a bit of a look at where I'm going now that we're not actually on the main section of the beach. I don't know where, I suppose this sign's a good indication to where Merewether Beach actually starts. One of the many signs that you see around warning people about various things. I have seen similar signs with some of the beach specific stuff taken away in the local parks, and I guess it makes sense. So instead of saying Merewether Beach, you'd have the name of the park. You wouldn't have the first bit in red, no flags, no swim, you wouldn't have that. And no life-saving service here unless flagged this way, you wouldn't have that. And then all the ones in the yellow diamonds you probably wouldn't have, or you wouldn't have in park, inland. But you'd have all the other ones like no alcohol, no glass, no littering, no fires, no camping, no smoking, no dogs. You'd have all those. And in an emergency dial 000, you'd still have that. But it's a nice walk. It's a nice walk along here. Merewether's got a coffee culture, and as I was saying before, it's really a place to see and be seen, and it's probably the biggest beach in Newcastle for that regard. One of the things that I didn't mention, oh, you can actually play chess here. Look at that. That's cool. And there's even got, what are they, seashells? What are they, shells? Yeah, they're shells. I suppose too you could play checkers if you didn't know how to play chess. So that's cool. That was random. It's just amazing, like if you have a look up here, and I'll try and zoom in. Right at the top of that hill is where I was this morning, and then all the cars underneath that big hill, that's Bar Beach, and then Dixon and Merewether, and then around to the Ocean Baths over there. And if I was fitter and more energetic, I wanted to You know, I could do the whole walk. But I'm not going to. Oh, there is actually a paraglider now at Dixon Beach. I'll see if I can zoom in. I probably won't be able to zoom anywhere as far. Just looks like a speck there, but the green speck in the sky. That's a paraglider at Dixon Beach, which is where we were a little bit earlier on. And it feels really strange I'm doing it this way. I'm shooting portrait at the moment for a video for Earthpod, and I never usually do any of my videos in portrait mode, although arguably I look better in portrait mode compared to landscape. But I don't know if it was me being in Merewether and thinking that like Merewether Beach has got an influencer type feel. I don't know, but I just thought that I'd do something a little bit different. I've been trying to vary things up. So after this episode, then I've got set up the day out that I had in August, and this is weird considering that it's now November. But I finally got round to editing the episodes where I went out in August. The first part is already up at the time of recording in mid-November. The second two parts will go up after you're seeing this. And so it's my big day out that I had in August. I'm going to show you something here which many people who didn't grow up around beaches may not be aware of. Now this is a simple beachside shower. So what you can do, if you come out of the water, come out of the sand, and you want to rinse the sand off your feet, you just press the button. So you just press the button there and you can rinse the sand off. It's only a very short, sort of a rinse. There's lots of sand there that's obviously come on people's feet. But it's just a little bit of interest there. It's not meant for you to get changed here by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just a way to get any sand primarily off your feet, so you can put your shoes on and go to your car. Speaking of things that you normally wouldn't see, and I haven't seen at any of the other beaches that I've been to, back at Merewether Beach. Mind you, having said that, it's probably the closest to the sand that I've actually been since I've been going to the other beaches. But this is a rescue tube. Now I'm not going to open it up just in case it sets off an alarm, and I probably should actually set off an alarm if it gets opened. Rescue tube inside. If you're not a strong swimmer, do not use this device. Do not enter the water. Dial 000. To use tube, put your head and arm through the strap so it sits across your body. When approaching the patient, push the tube towards them and instruct them to grab on. Tell the patient to put their arms over the tube help them or stay calm and raise your arm, supported by the Merewether community. Now, I did mention in the first episode about using public transport to get to Newcastle's beaches. Now, Merewether is actually a pretty easy beach to get to if you use the number 12 bus. So here's Merewether Beach, and we'll pan around, and just across the road, and if we zoom in to the back of the bus, that's the number 12 bus that runs to and from Merewether Beach. One thing that I deliberately haven't featured are the surf lifesaving clubs and the kiosk facilities at each of the beaches, as I don't think it's really my area of expertise. But this is the Merewether Surf Lifesaving Club, and they have a bar called the Pump House Bar. All welcome, Sundays 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Come up and enjoy the view. So yeah, I'm not really familiar with the culture of the surf lifesaving clubs. I presume it's more for the lifesavers and the lifeguards, surf lifesaving, that sort of thing. And it's definitely a culture that I'm not really familiar with. I think I did go to one surf lifesaving club when I went on holidays once to the Gold Coast, but up there they're more developed as an actual club that anybody can go to at any time. I believe that the surf lifesaving club here at Merewether is probably the biggest in this area. I was reading on some signs earlier that they have yoga sometimes in the mornings. So the building's definitely used, but it's not like a traditional bar or a pub or a club that's opened a lot of the time. Merewether certainly hasn't got the feel of somewhere like the Gold Coast, and that's probably a good thing. The real estate around here, especially for those with ocean views, would be very, very expensive. I know when I was looking at places to rent when I moved out of my unit and into where I am now, anywhere that was sort of Merewether was really out of my price range. And then of course you've got Merewether Heights and that sort of thing. You know, it hasn't built up a lot around here. Like, you don't see the multi-storey buildings like you do see around Newcastle Beach or around places like the Gold Coast or even Bondi in Sydney. And quite honestly, that's probably the way that the locals like it. But one advantage of coming here on my scooter is that near pretty much all of the beaches you get some great parking. So you get some great parking and it's for free, and you can stay here however long you want. So I'm going to call it an episode here. I'm going to get on my scooter and go home. We'll see you tomorrow in real time as we go to Merewether Ocean Baths on cleaning day. Hello, just a little note from the editing suite. If this was Good Job Brain, who, by the way, the Trivia Podcast has just celebrated 300 episodes, so congratulations. If this was Good Job Brain, I'd be calling this an actually. They have a segment called Actually that corrects any mistakes that were made in previous episodes. However, this is not so much a mistake, but just a clarification in relation to What I was talking about in relation to the change of the Pepsi recipe in Australia. And just to summarise, courtesy of Channel 7 News here in Australia, there was an article published on the 2nd of July 2025 called "Stock Up Now, Outrage as Pepsi and Mountain Dew Recipes Change." Now, what actually happened, and it has happened, and the can that you saw me drinking on camera and the can that I have beside me now is one of the new ones with the 1.5 stars out of 5 for nutrition ratings. So PepsiCo have confirmed that they have changed the recipe of Pepsi, regular Pepsi and Mountain Dew in Australia. Now the article says here, it follows changes that the company has already made to its Sprite, Fanta and Lift fizzy drinks. Now Sprite and Fanta, at least, they're Coca-Cola, they're not Pepsi. They don't come from PepsiCo. So previously, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a can of Pepsi was rated 0.5 stars out of 5, but now it's 1.5 out of 5. The sweeteners used in the new Pepsi blend are 950, which is isophylam potassium, or nicknamed Ace K, and 955 sucrose. And sucrose is 600 times sweeter than sugar with no kilojoules, while Ace K is 200 times sweeter. According to one study, adults who consumed Ace K are at higher risk of cancer than those who don't. Studies find that sucrose can increase irritable bowel syndrome and cause inflammation due to its impact on at least 14 different groups of gut bacteria. So they are out now. The story then goes on to mention when Coke changed its recipe in 1985 and they decided to introduce New Coke, and Coca-Cola at the time changed the recipe in response to the demand from focus groups that preferred it to be sweeter, like the drink of competitor Pepsi. And so at the time when Coke did this, there were over 1,000 calls a day from consumers who objected to the move. Coke was forced to reintroduce the old Pepsi 79 days after the new brand launch, and they sold the two drinks side by side until 2002. So Pepsi said that the move was, quote, in response to consumers who tell us that they are looking for products that contain less sugar. And PepsiCo had, quote, undertaken extensive sensory research to ensure that they were still delivering this great same taste that consumers know and love. And I can confirm the can of Pepsi that I drank on camera earlier today as I'm recording this was one of the new ones. I haven't noticed a difference in the taste, but I did notice on the can that it is 1.5 stars. I've got one here, and on here somewhere, there it is down the bottom underneath the logo, 1.5 stars out of 5 compared to 0.5 before. So the Pepsi has changed the recipe. Doesn't taste any different to me, and I should know I have 4 cans daily. Although having said that, I have cut down my consumption a lot compared to previous times. I haven't noticed a taste difference. I haven't noticed that the world has ended or anything like that. Didn't taste like the American or the Mexican versions as I thought that it might have had. Very, very quietly did that come in. I actually read it on Mastodon the other day. Somebody posted about it, but that story, and I'll leave a link if I remember in the show notes in the episode description where it talks about it, that story from June 2025, and it's now November 2025. Anywho, back to Merewether Ocean Baths. Good morning. It is Thursday morning, the 20th of October, and we're back at the Merewether Ocean Baths. Looking very, very different this morning compared to yesterday when we were here with lots of people, lots of water in the pools. They're certainly looking a lot different. Did a bit of reading overnight as well in relation to the process. Full information is on the City of Newcastle website relating to when cleans are done. And one thing that I actually learned was that it's partly to do with when the low tides are in the morning. When low tide is determines when they actually start the full clean. So this morning the baths would have been officially closed at midnight. I don't know who was here at midnight because I certainly wasn't. That time varies depending on when low tide is in the morning. The water's draining, there's a lot of work that's going on behind me. So what we can see going on at the moment is pressure washing of the entry ramp into what they call Merewether Learners Pool, and that's the shovel up of the two pools as we were watching them yesterday. Just as I was arriving at 7:30, they just finished pressure washing the larger ramp that we're having a look at now. So we can see that there's a bit of a swell up this morning, and we are looking into the sun at 7:30 in the morning. So I'm not going to stay here all day, but just for a couple of hours maybe, to see what's going on. Certainly a lot easier to see the action going on here compared to Newcastle. There's a couple of dogs and their owner just taking advantage of the time to have a run around. You can also see how far the ladder actually extends into the pool. The process that's going on at the moment is pressure washing pool walls. One of the processes that is undertaken is making sure that there's no rubbish on the bottom of the pool. I presume that the sand will get levelled out before the water gets let back in. It's amazing to see this view with the heights, different heights of the pools. Now you might be wondering what this particular structure was and is, and I was, until I did some more reading overnight. And that's where the pumps are controlled from, and I believe housed, which will later on allow water to be pumped back into what is currently just an empty shell of the pool. So I was also doing some reading, and the pumps usually don't work at low tide. It's usually at what they call mid tide and also high tide, which will be later on this morning. So the main pool is actually filling up as we speak. It is just on 8 a.m. with a high tide this morning at 8:59 a.m. of 1.8 metres. The low tide this morning was at 2:19 and it was very low, so obviously the main aim of the game is to get everything done before the morning high tide, and the high tide plus the pumps will help to refill the pool. So it's just an interesting process just to watch. I wouldn't necessarily do this every week, of course, and I wouldn't be able to because of work anyway, because a lot of this work is done in the morning when I'm working. But it is good to actually see the process here at Merewether. The workers are pretty chill, they're just doing their work, they do have their safety signage etc. out. But as long as you leave them alone, there's plenty of space that you can still walk around, still smell the salt air from the ocean, still hear and see the birds, and watch the water refill. outside's really starting to kick in now. Well, boy, didn't I have fun. I was trying to do a time lapse of the water entering the main pool. And I was using a different attachment to the phone than I was yesterday. And unfortunately, one of the plastic bits snapped and almost sent my phone into the pool. And of course, it was a part of the pool that's right next to me, and indeed has a little bit of water in it. So my phone came out of the plastic mounting for the iPhone, bounced on the concrete, and then nearly but didn't bounce into the water. So I've got to say though, I was pretty lucky, really. It could have been a lot worse. The pool could have gratefully received my iPhone. Would have been easy enough to find, but that probably would have ruined the phone. I'm glad that didn't happen. So compared to a cracked back screen, and I normally don't have a phone out of the case anyway, except for if I'm filming like this. It's a new back screen. The phone's a year old now. So it was lucky that's all it was. So I'm back to the magnetic mount, which is certainly a lot stronger. Alright, it's about 10 minutes to 9. High tide is in about 10 minutes. So realistically it will take another couple of hours to fill the main pool behind me, and then also the learner's pool. I'm not necessarily going to stick around and watch the process of filling up the learner's pool. I dare say the pump will be more required for that than the main pool. So I should be able to reopen the schedule this afternoon. I'll leave links for the City of Newcastle website relating to the ocean baths and also the various beaches. But it's certainly been fascinating to get to know the beaches a little bit better. Certainly been a lot easier to film today as well, with hardly anybody around. There's a mix between being able to film what you want and being careful of your surroundings and also the people in the surroundings as well. Another link that I'll leave you in the show notes is a Facebook group. It's called the Friends of Merewether Ocean Baths, and there's some spectacular photos and some videos as well of not only the ocean baths here at Merewether but also Newcastle and some of the beaches as well, which is quite cool. The posts seem to fit into a few categories. There's some people who have taken videos and photos of the beach, which is cool. Some people wondering about the cleanliness of the ocean baths when they get cleaned, and then other people reminding them that the ocean baths are a part of the ocean. And then there's people with lost property and not as well, and people sharing their experiences of being here at the ocean baths. Well, hope you have enjoyed this episode of ErkPod and this two-part series. If I decide to go to a different beach, well, it might be a different part of the series. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But just to talk about where we've been on this episode and the previous beach episode, we started at the Newcastle Ocean Baths and the Newcastle Beach, and then around to Nobbys Beach Bar Beach, and then we were planning to come to Dixon Park, Merewether and the Ocean Baths. But on this episode we started at Dixon Park, Merewether Beach, and then today and yesterday here at the Merewether Ocean Baths. So what's coming up? We do have a couple of episodes to finish up my big August day out, where we go and chase trains and then chase planes, trains and automobiles. So that'll be the next couple of episodes, and then to finish up the year, to finish up 2025, I'll have a hockey episode where I'll be sharing some experiences from this year 2025, what's happening for me in 2026, and also share my hockey jersey collection. Anywho, I've been Eric Brook. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. This has been another episode of ErkPod, and I will see you next time. Ta-ta and farewell. Bye-bye for now.